Welcome to the Phat Games podcast. On this episode, we have some very great guests. Like virtually everyone else we've had on the podcast so far, they're indie game developers. And they're also fellow Gumbos from the Gumbo Game Dev Cooperative. I'd like to welcome John and Vinit from Cheap Ramen Games. Thanks for coming, guys.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Right. Yeah.
It's a fine Monday.
It's a fine Monday. Yeah. Usually we record on Wednesdays, but yeah, the hurricane, at least by the time this airs, the hurricane will be over by several weeks.
I didn't even hear about this hurricane you guys are having until you just mentioned the word hurricane just now.
Hurricane Henry, I think.
Yeah, it's like tropical storm Henry.
Oh yeah, tropical storm. It's been downgraded. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's just me staying inside, Henry. That's.
Yeah. Staying out of the rain.
Yeah.
So, do you guys want to start by giving us a little bit about your background, telling us how you got into the wonderful indie game making racket?
Yeah. I guess I'll go first because I guess mine would lead into Vinit's probably. Maybe we'll see what happens. So I was teaching. I was making games on my own and like teaching in game development for many years at like a bunch of different schools. I was at the New York Film Academy and the Advanced Media Vocational Academy out in LA. And I did a bunch of like small after school programs here, teaching kids how to code and make games. But I always like made games on my own. And then I worked at, my last job was at Normal, the virtual reality company, making games there. And after losing a friend who was also a game developer, I decided to just jump out of working for other people and do my own thing. So several years.
You say you were from LA or you live there?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
I lived there for like a year, but I am very New York.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned
like how those opinions are already coming out. The New York opinions.
Nice.
Very much not LA.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you lost a friend. Was that Jose?
That was Jose. We were business partners, me, him, and Rob.
Oh, wow.
So at the New York Film Academy, he was actually a student there at the time. So I met him through like playcrafting stuff. He took the class there, and I was always just running into him, and he was like so friendly, you couldn't not like him. And then him and Rob were working together, and he was a student in the animation program, and I was teaching the games program, and we kept talking. And then they asked me to join their studio. So we were partners for like 2 years and released a game together. And then they started doing commercial projects. And
did you work on Don't Look Away?
I did not. I came on right after that.
Okay.
I worked on The Take.
Okay. Oh yeah. I never played that one, but okay. Yeah. So I guess I was familiar with your work before I was familiar with you.
Nice.
It's always a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've never really talked about Jose on the podcast yet, and I don't know if it's a great time to get into it, but Jose, for our listeners, Jose was someone who's part of the indie game community here in New York and unfortunately lost his life a couple of years ago almost. Wow, time flies. Anyway, happier note. How are you doing, Vinit?
Good, yeah. Doing okay. I can get into my background a bit. It overlaps with John. But I've kind of been into games forever, just like everybody else in indie. For me, it was just like, I remember watching in high school that like dev diary for Halo 2 and being like, I got to get into games. And in college, I interviewed with Bungie. I was like, hey man, like this has been my dream to work at Bungie, specifically because you worked on Halo 2. And he was like, yeah, I mean, no, it's fine. it's nothing too great. And that interview was just like the most low energy thing. So it kind of put me off getting into game development, at least like AAA development for a while. But I knew I wanted to do it. So I was like close to turning 30 at the time. And I was like, I gotta do this. I'm in New York. There's gotta be something around here. And so like I went to a bunch of meetups and like other events, and I think I even joined like EE's meetup. They're like, I don't know if she's part of the ice cream social or she had another meetup going on. But I then took that playcrafting course. Was it 2019? I would say the 2019 playcrafting course. And that was the one, they had an info session. Rob and Jose were both doing the info session at the time. And Jose was actually the reason why I joined, because I come from a technical background, so I'm a coder and I knew I could always code. But Jose's big thing about taking that class was about the business side of things, and his pitch for the class was when you take the class, you're going to be introduced to like this huge network of people. And that was kind of what turned me onto it. He was like, he was going to take on teaching like the business end of things and meeting other people, and that was where I was lacking. And so unfortunately, Jose had passed away, and John had come on as a kind of substitute teacher at the time, and that's how John and I had met. But I had taken that class with the intention of starting my own studio. And so John and I got in, we decided to work on was like a game jam.
Yeah.
Just
to make sure that we didn't fully hate each other.
Right.
That's
yeah.
a smart idea.
Yeah. So yeah, we did a game jam. It was like into the pandemic. I think it was about a couple months into the pandemic. And after that game jam, John had reached out and asked if I wanted to work on this project he was thinking about. And the rest is kind of history.
So your partnership is then fairly new then. This doesn't go back years and years. So now, John, you said you did a lot of like game dev teaching and stuff. Have you always worked in the kind of games area, or even kind of games adjacent, or did you have some other job before this craziness?
I've had lots of jobs. Yeah, so I mean, mostly games, right? That's what I love to do. And yeah, so I worked I went to college for interactive design and game development, and like right after college, I couldn't find work. I was mostly doing art for games, and then I started learning to program because no one cares about your art if it's not like this interesting interactive piece. So I started making them interactive, and then I moved out to LA because actually I was interning at Frederator. They were doing like a Adventure Time and such, and that was like super cool. But Fred, who works there, he told me to move out to LA if I was serious about games.
Really?
And then later I found out he just tells everyone to move out to LA. So I moved out there looking to work at one of these bigger studios, and then instead I got a job working at this school, and then I just kept working at different school programs until I was able to build up enough work of my own to then get a job at a studio.
Oh, sweet. How about you, Vinit?
This is my first like foray professionally into games. Prior to this, I've always been into startups forever. So I think I only had one job. I used to work at a trading firm before I moved up to New York. So that was my like a non-startup-y job that I had.
So
for
were
a
you like
bit.
a finance bro?
I was a software developer. I did the trading systems, but yeah, I was definitely surrounded by a lot of finance bros, which is like, it was good. I knew nothing about money going into it, and it was like, it's kind of they teach you super fast. So I took something away from it, but yeah, there's a lot of that. It's not Wolf of Wall Street, but it's definitely got some of those vibes. Yeah, so I startups for a long time. I'm actually working. I have another job that actually helps pay the rent. So I work as a data engineering consultant at a startup that I helped start a little while back, a few years ago. Like right when I moved to New York, so about 5 years ago, I've been with them.
Well, so but games is where the passion is.
Games is where the passion is. Yeah. Hopefully at some point it'll also pay some bills, but until then, yeah, it's just all passion.
So actually, and this is I don't want to depress anyone here, but so someone who actually listens to the podcast, who is also a friend of mine, reached out to me and said, I actually really enjoy the podcast. However, the lesson that I've learned is if becoming an indie game developer is extremely depressing because everyone's poor and it's all a labor of love. And I was like, hey man, we had a couple successful people on. So I just want to make sure that they're taking away some good stories from this as well. So, but this is like the greatest. We're seeing you guys kind of just basically as you're kind of kicking things off, right? Because you just finished your first game here with Meow Pow.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we get into that?
Sure.
So I like that game a lot. I would describe it as a cutesy air hockey game starring cats. But how would you guys describe it?
I mean, it's pretty spot on. I mean, we definitely say like the pitch is fast-paced, sports-ish game with cats. The inspiration for it was actually knock hockey, not air hockey. The only reason being is that the ball comes to a complete stop, right? Whereas air hockey, it still moves slow. But and also knock hockey, I feel like is stupider.
Okay.
Just because it's like you always smash your knuckles and get hurt, and it's just people screaming at each other. I feel like air hockey, you keep your distance, right?
Wait, knock hockey is carom, right? Just for the
carom,
other.
yes.
Okay, got it. I don't know if you guys know. I didn't know what knock hockey
I don't know what it is either, but okay. Well, let's get into that then.
Okay. Knock hockey is like, so imagine if air hockey, it's very similar to air hockey, except you use long sticks, and it's a wooden puck on a wooden table, and you can reach pretty far. So you'll end up like smashing each other's hands, but also there's a small like wooden block in front of your goal. So you always have to do a shot where it bounces off the wall into the goal, which is like a very core thing of Meow Pow is you can never just make a straight shot into the goal. It always has to go at an angle or bounce.
I'm just looking at like picture this right now. I have seen this before. Where have I seen this before, Blair?
Is it a Gumbo on the Gumbo website or something?
Mm-hmm.
No, I remember seeing this in person as a kid.
Probably not as a kid. Why this game?
Yeah, so I when I was still working at Normal, actually scratch that. So for like 6 months, nights and weekends, I was just like building prototypes. I'd build like in a weekend, I'd build like a stupid idea and show it off some people and be like, what do you guys think of this? And they'd be like, oh, this is cool, but I don't know about this, this, and this. I actually, before moving to Gumbo, had an office with Rob and Jose, and I'd often show it to them. And then I started showing it to my students. Vinit was actually one of the first people to play Meow Pow in its earliest form, where there was just no art, but it was just like super fast-paced, hit the ball back and forth. And it was like, okay, what's interesting about these things, because I knew I wanted to leave my job to do to do this full time. So I just didn't have anything to work on, so I want to make sure the first day of like being on my own, I'm just hitting the ground running with an idea that has been tested and proven. So it had to fit a few parameters. It had to just be like, had to be fun, right? I feel like some games aren't necessarily fun, but like deep or whatever. It had to be something I can accomplish in a year. And I guess that's it. And it had to be like cheap to make. So it was like, all right, the plan was no AI, which is why it's local multiplayer, but put AI in it anyway. It had to have no story because story would have taken up more time of development. And it just had to be like mechanics focused. So I kind of came up with this. I came up with a bunch of ideas. A first earlier version of Meow Pow, you would grab the ball and bring it to your own goal. And I actually showed that one to Jose, who then told me, this isn't how soccer works, which I don't know sports. So that is why you now go to the other goal with the ball. But yeah, so this seemed like something that was scoped down to a year. It's just like, okay, I built it in a weekend, primarily the core gameplay with 2 controllers. And after showing it off to a few people, they were really into it. So I was just like, all right, cool, let's do this game.
Sweet. And when did Vinit get pulled into it?
So we had a deal for Labor Day, and the idea was we were Labor Day of 2020. We were like, okay, we're gonna start working together. Meow Pow should be out by then, because the idea was it was gonna be 8 months of development. But I started talking to a publisher, and that like pushed everything out. And they wanted to see like a build that could be online ready, so I had to like re-architect everything. So Vinit came on. We started working on a different project Labor Day, and then probably about like November, December, and the idea was, okay, by then we're like, we definitely want to work together as a company, because our deal with making this other project that we're working on, we didn't necessarily want to like, I didn't want to give up half the company yet.
Yeah.
Right. The idea was we have a contract. He owns his work. I own my work. Let's work together for like, I think it was 6 months. And if 6 months is good, then we'll just, join as each half of the company. And it was going well. So probably about November, December, we're like, oh yeah, we're definitely gonna, work together as, business partners. Why don't you come on, help me finish this? We'll get it out the door, and then we can do full time on this new project. So yeah, not that long ago. I mean, the game only came out in March, but it was still like, I think 14 months from start to launch.
So, it's actually pretty rare that at least that I've seen, or that I've even seen in Gumbo or in Playcrafting, where two people actually work together and basically start a studio together and, well, quite frankly, get along and have the same artistic vision, because that's not easy. Like everyone generally, especially at Gumbo, kind of just wants to do their own thing. So that's pretty awesome. Although there's a lot of husband and wife combos that we've seen, which is also really interesting, because that has its own unique dynamic as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like husband and husband.
And husband.
We kind of joke about that. Is we're business partners, but we like act as each other's second partners, just because it's kind of the nature of the beast. You're doing so much stuff together.
Spend a lot of time together.
Yeah, than anyone else. Yeah.
So you mentioned a publisher, but Meow Pow doesn't have one. That never kind of did it, or did it?
No, they kept being like, we want to see this, we want to see this, we want to see this, and eventually I'm just like, you don't get what I'm doing. And it was just like pushing it out to be like a 2-year project. And I'm like, this project is not something I want to work on for 2 years. Right. So it kind of, that whole thing fell apart, which is fine. It is what it is. I'm happy with it. I think Vinit's happy with it. It's opened a bunch of doors for us. So it's good.
Nice. So you talked a little bit about the development process. Now, how was what was the development of Meow Pow like? Is it straightforward, or is there lots of challenges and stuff that you had to sort of sort out?
Well, so development started in the end of, it was like the last week of January 2020. So no challenges. There's been no challenges the entire year.
No pandemic. None of that
easy
happened.
As could be. No, it sucked. It was cool. I could work from my laptop. But it was like, the day I was gonna put in my 2 weeks, I was let go from my job. So it worked out fine. But it was like going into that whole thing, just okay, I got to do this, and then it's just like, all right, I'm stuck at home. It was weird. The only good part about it was I had my laptop and I could work from my laptop. But a big part of it, and a big part where I saw screw ups in other studios I've worked with and other projects I've worked on, was it didn't get enough outside feedback. It didn't get enough play testing early on, and I really lost out on that. And also, I was a solo developer making a 4-player game.
Hard to kind of test that.
Yeah, and in a way that it was like, oh, this is this is local multiplayer. I need to test it, and everyone's in quarantine. It's like being a solo developer in a multiplayer game is bad enough, but it's like I see myself and my partner, and she was still working at a restaurant even though it wasn't open. They were prepping for another restaurant in the group. So I'd go there and sit at the counter, and she'd work in the kitchen. And I would just be like, all right, here's 4 controllers. And eventually I got AI in just so I had someone to play against, and so I could record a trailer. But Yeah, it sucked. I think overall the quality would be better without the pandemic. I'm definitely going to blame that because I can. But you know, the idea was to show it off more and get like earlier feedback and just understand like what the players do and don't like continuously of every build I made. And it, you know, that just it didn't pan out.
So, how did Play NYC go for you guys then? Because you showed this game there, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Vinit, you want to take this one?
Yeah, it was great. Play NYC was honestly it was really, really good because after we released Meow Pow, we had a couple other projects come up related to it. We got the game in an arcade cabinet at Wonderville,
Wow.
which was hugely helpful for us just because when you're like, we had built the game just for Steam. So when I came on, like I had helped John go through and redo some of the architecture so that it was ready and stable for a build out on Steam. And when we got into Wonderville as an arcade cabinet, we realized that a lot of the shit that we had done in the game was we had to just change it because when you're on Steam, we can do things like controller detection, right? So you have controllers that can come up. You have menu systems that appear on a regular game, whereas in an arcade cabinet, usually there are no menus. Players shouldn't be messing around with settings or anything like that, and things should kind of just work always by default.
Mm-hmm.
And that was helpful for us because we just took that build and we just set it up for Play NYC, and it was there because we had already kind of polished a lot of that stuff for Wonderville. So that was kind of nice. And you know, we had gone to Play NYC, just the purpose of that was just meeting interesting people, making connections, networking with, you know, potential other publishers and journalists and other people in the industry and other game devs. And so having a game that we didn't have to worry about a build working just at the last minute was super nice. Not having to, we just left the game out there.
Right.
We talked to a bunch of people that came up and played the game, and it was just very kind of stress-free. So like there was a good portion of like Sunday when neither John nor I were at the booth, and we were just walking around and playing everybody else's game and meeting people. And people were still going up to the game and just playing it because we had like the attract mode available. So people were seeing the trailer running when the game wasn't actually playing, and they just go up and pick up a controller and play. And it was super nice.
That's awesome. So you're the second people we've had in the podcast that have had a cabinet set up at Wonderville. So are you guys thinking about doing what Jonah did and try and get some more cabinets out there, or is this just a one-time thing?
This is gonna be a one-time thing.
So it's kind of a one. It's
well, actually,
so,
we'll be at that other We'll be at another bar in Brooklyn next month. We actually have to follow up on that. But yeah,
we did for a hot second. We seriously considered what that business model would be like if we decided to pivot. And really, it's just you spend a lot of your time doing sales with that kind of thing. And we had some other people that we had reached out to that have sort of these, you know, at-home arcade cabinet, like these multi-cap kind of setups that you could do. But the sort of work that's involved with that, since with those you need to have online multiplayer and things like that working, and you know, building out netcode for a free game for that kind of thing, it really just didn't. The numbers would not have worked out in our favor, especially if we're trying to work on this other game. So, you know, it was super fun, and maybe at some point John and I will work on a real arcade cabinet game that's just made for that, but definitely not in the near future. We are going to be at there's another bar. I don't know what the other bar is, but we're probably going to be at another bar at some point. So as long as it's like low effort, we'll probably, you know, put arcade cabinets up, but I don't think we're going to pivot anytime soon.
That's our rule for everything. If it's low effort, we'll do it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you mentioned that you made this game free. So let's talk about that a little bit. What drove the free decision? And because as we know, free is very profitable.
Yeah, it's super easy to make a ton of money when your game makes no money. There's that's how it works. I don't know. It was kind of a tough decision because John had wanted to go in when he was working on the game. He had kind of a price point in mind. I think you were thinking like $15 or something like that. originally for the game, which is sort of standard for an indie game of that size. But we so Gumbo has, and you're part of this player, but we have these, you know, bi-weekly or monthly or once every 2 monthly meetings, depending on whatever the mood of the people is. So we do these like stand-up things with other devs at Gumbo called Scrumbo, and at one of them we had talked about what we had priced the game at, and you know, it had been suggested to us that, you know, maybe put the game out for free, because like what we had when we had kind of done some of the heuristics for how much money we thought we were going to get from the game, it wasn't going to be a lot. You know, the Meow Pow wasn't really meant to be a runaway success. It's a local multiplayer game and it doesn't have any netcode. So you're really limiting your audience there. And there wasn't any real single player component to the game. So we knew it wasn't going to be a ton. But the three kind of main things that we wanted to get out of Meow Pow were, one was experience, just like being able to put a game out on Steam and seeing what that whole process was like, because there's kind of a little bit involved in like the back and forth with Steam and, you know, getting beta keys up and getting builds out there, and just like releasing a game. The second thing that we wanted was a community, just like a group of people that would be interested in the stuff that we're putting out, so that when we did eventually make a game that was going to make money, we had people to show the game to kind of right off the bat. And the third thing that we wanted was some level of clout. So when we talk to publishers, we could let them know that we have a thing that we made, and it has a decent community behind it. It was made with like an intent, as opposed to just sort of, it was made with the intent for this to be, you know, a long running business, as opposed to just something that was only a passion project. So given those things, we had kind of, in order to optimize the whole, like, how do we get as many people to play this game as possible? How do we build that community? We thought free was the right way to go. Just reduce that barrier to entry as much as possible. And it seems to have worked out a little bit.
Well, what was your sort of goals with that? Like, just how many downloads, if I may ask, did you get, or have you gotten so far?
I think John had kind of put up a goal of he would be happy with something like 20,000 downloads within the first 2 months, and we got that.
Wow.
I think we got to, I don't know what we're at now. I think last time I checked, we're at, I think like 200. We were at like 200 downloads a week, but the average playtime is still super minimal. So like, if people will download free games, they just won't necessarily open it.
Yeah, I got a question on that when you're done. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's basically, it's, we found so using the statistic that Steam gives you, there's just some really kind of baffling behavior that happens on Steam.
The data is kind of ugly. They give you the license. They'll say we've given away this many licenses, but it doesn't mean anyone's downloaded anything. Because I was trying to figure that out with kids of Karendow when I released the demo. I had like 3,000 downloads within the first few days. I was like, this is awesome. And I was like, look at the stats. I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Yes.
It was like I had now, but when I clean up the data, there's 22 total active users that have actually played it. But those users have actually played it all the way through. But so I just, that's what I really wanted to get at. I wanted to see if your experience was like that too. So do you know how many
similar
totally active users who've actually logged in and played?
I think it's 10% of, it was pretty close to about 10% of what our downloads were.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's changed since. But we do, like, one of the weird things that we found was we're still getting wish lists for the game, which doesn't, usually you wish list the game because you wait for the sale to happen so you can buy it at a cheaper price. But I don't know what a sale for free looks like. It's just,
it probably is not even looking. It's like, oh, that looks good, I'll play it later.
Yeah,
and I just click on wish list.
Yeah. So we've racked up the wish list. Just not really any conversion for those.
All right, so it just sounds like it's challenging no matter how it goes. So how did you promote the game then? Because you guys did some Steam Festival kind of things, right?
Yeah, John, you want to take this one?
Yeah, although I forgot how it was. we either did a festival right before we launched or right after we launched, and I don't remember which one it was.
We did a demo in spring.
Was it right?
So we
Okay,
did,
so
yeah.
it was right
Yeah,
before.
or the Winter Fest. We did the Steam.
Oh, we did.
Winter
So we did
Festival.
both, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we got into 2 festivals. So we did. No, we didn't do the spring. So we got into the Winter Festival.
Yeah, Winter Festival.
And we like upped our wish list that way, and we got like people to know about what we were doing, and got like a good amount of eyes on Meow Pow. At the time, I think it was listed as it would be free, but we also had a demo, which was like just the first level, which we could have put the whole thing out there, but it was like, no, let's get those downloads. So yeah, we just had a free demo, and yeah, people liked it. It seemed like it did well. It gave us a lot of traction, got a lot of wish lists, and then it launched maybe a month later, and the launch went really well. And then probably a month after that, it was the Remote Play Together Festival, which we then spent like a weekend trying to figure out how to just make little updates here and there, and then we were part of that as well. And so Remote Play Together, if you don't know, it's part of Steam, where if you and your friend, or you have a game and your friend sees you playing it, like you can invite them, or I think they can ask to join, and then you both get to play the game remotely with only one of you owning it. Because a lot of people were asking us for like online multiplayer, which was not something we were going to add. So this was a way to appease the people who have asked for it, but also it was nice to be shown off in that promotion. And I think, Vinit, you were looking at all of the stats on that, and we were like one of the few sports games and one of the few
for the first one. Yeah,
for the
Winter
Festival, right?
So
okay.
It was actually funny. So for the Winter Festival, when we did it, they had a category for cute, and I think they also had a category for cat. And so we fit this like really and for sports, and we fit this super weird niche that was like cute cat sports. So we got anyone that was looking for that. So I think there were like 2 other games that were in that, and then we were the only one that was local multiplayer. So we got a bunch of eyes on the game from the Steam Festival, just because when you scroll through the categories there, we were just one of the few people with a demo on that. But with the remote play, it turns out it wasn't really a festival, it was a sale.
Right.
And Steam doesn't promote, so for Steam sales, they don't promote free games on their like main page, and like their like main page real estate is really how you get noticed on Steam. Like that's how a lot of that the algorithm for those festivals work. And so we were accepted into the festival, but we didn't realize that it was so we had done all this work to get the game out there, and they also had like this, like you could do a developer live stream and they'd promote that too. So we were doing a live stream, but we were like, why is our game not showing up on that page? And it was because it was free, so it wasn't being the Steam algorithm wasn't displaying the game for other people to download, because there was no sale to be had for a free game. So we were just, it was super disappointing. We did get a bunch of people looking at that live stream, and we figured out how to get that. What was an app that we used to like stream to a bunch of places at once to work? So that was Restream. Yeah. So it wasn't like completely fruitless, but yeah, it was super disappointing to not be on that, to not be featured in that. The lesson learned: you gotta, if you want to be in a sale, you gotta actually have
have a game to sell.
You gotta be on set.
Exactly. Yeah. You gotta sell something.
Now I'm gonna pivot here. Now you're working on a new project already. What can you share about that? What are you ready to share about that at this point?
Yeah, I can talk about it. All right, so I'll just give you the quick pitch that I was given to some of the people that we were talking to recently. But the kind of idea of the game is Overcooked meets mini golf. So what we're kind of going for is this sort of top-down delivery game. So the premise of the game is, a sort of narrative premise of the game is, you're this person that is doing this fruit delivery startup on an island, and you want to deliver to these archipelagos as quickly as possible. So every level is sort of Overcooked style. you're trying to deliver these fruit as fast as possible. But the kind of hook of the game is that the movement that you do is sort of click and drag, and you click and drag and slingshot these little boats around the archipelago, these sets of islands in the water. So it's got this sort of ping pong mini golf style physics system, and with like the overcooked sort of delivery mechanic of trying to optimize your delivery to get to places. And there are a lot of interesting obstacles and things that we're putting into the game, and we're going with this sort of, I kind of hesitate to say roguelite, but this loop mechanic in there where when you lose, your company goes bankrupt and you kind of start back again, but you get to keep some of the bits of your company that you had before you started the game. And so we're trying to make it as like weird and quirky as possible. So like the boats in the game are sort of Pokemon-esque characters that you can fish for, because we thought that would be super funny. Yeah, that's sort of the basic idea of the game.
That is super cool. John was actually telling me about it this past weekend, and it was when he said fishing for boats, I was like, so that's how it works.
Yeah, because when we talk about that game, we pivoted that pitch to saying Overcooked meets mini golf, but we used to say like fishing for boats, and people we're hoping that would be sort of a hooky kind of catchphrase, but I think people associate fishing with boats, so they don't kind of give it a second thought that the boats themselves are the fish in the game.
It's not paying close enough attention then.
Yeah, yeah.
So does the game have a title yet, or is it still early on?
We're calling so it's got the title of the game has gone through a number of iterations for a number of reasons, but the working project title is Fruit by the Boat. It's definitely not going to be the final version of the game. Definitely like very sort of American targeted, so it's not really going to translate well. But that's what we're going with as a project title.
Right. I like it, but you're right. It may not translate well. Fruit by the boat.
Yeah, I mean,
how about fruit off the boat?
All right.
It's
I mean,
I was just thinking fresh off the boat. So.
Yeah, that's not bad. So we were going with like, fruit by the foot, I don't know if they're the fruit snack. I don't know if you guys had that growing up.
Yeah.
I kind of remember something like that.
They don't call it fruit by the meter in Canada?
No, it was fruit by the foot.
Because they don't localize. Okay.
They don't okay, well maybe this will work then.
So how long have you been working on this one now then?
Almost a year.
Almost a year.
Yeah. Next week.
So it overlapped with Meow Pow?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
A lot.
Got it. So you're working on multiple stuff at once then. That's keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one way to describe it.
So aside from having to do all of this through COVID and working on multiple things at once and launching a free game and the challenges you face with promoting that, with the newest title, what have you faced in terms of technical, financial, or existential challenges?
Yes. All of the above. So I think like one of our biggest hurdles, which we just got over probably in May, was what is this game? And so we were really trying to be like, oh, this is going, this is a gameplay first, game mechanic oriented game. Story will serve the mechanics, and art will serve the mechanics and all of that. But really what happened was I made this little demo I showed to Vinit, and I called it Knock Loose, but like knock with an N. So it's like when you load a bow, it's like aim, knock loose. And it was a top-down roguelike dungeon crawler where you were an archer with a limited number of arrows. And so it was kind of like Enter the Gungeon meets Towerfall.
Never played Towerfall.
Towerfall's fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like local multiplayer, like arcade kind of fighting game, but you have like, if your arrows, you drop an arrow, you shoot an arrow, you have to go pick it up. So I thought that would be like a really interesting idea, and it was okay. It wasn't the worst thing. I've ever thought of. So I showed it to Vinit, and he's like, "Yeah, totally, we should work on this." And then I went away for a week to like a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and like I had no cell reception, no internet. It was weird but nice. And so on the drive back, I finally get cell service, and I text Vinit. I'm like, "Hey, I don't want to make this game anymore. What do you think about making a game about boats delivering fruit in like tropical islands?" And he's like, "Okay, let's talk about it." So, and this is after we like explored, a few ideas. Really didn't. I don't think we really coded anything. I made a bunch of art that was like okay, and was like playing around with some stuff. And then we just spent the next like 9 months just iterating on this idea, and then we kept getting further and further away from it, and we ended up with like making a Into the Breach like style game where it's like turn-based, working against the environment. And then we made like this story game that was very like Breath of the Wild like, and we just kept making these prototypes, and I think we have about 12 prototypes. And then we split off, and each made our own demo and brought it back to each other, and then we're just like, oh no, this still isn't quite right. So I started looking through old notes, and it said something like Ordia meets Super Hot, and Ordia is like this game where you like slingshot this little creature to like different points, and like it's a fine little mobile game. But I made something like that, and it was okay. It was like you'd slingshot a boat, and time would only move when you would move. So it'd be like, oh, here comes another boat, and you have to like line up the shot right. And it was very slow. And then I gave the demo to Vinit, and then he spent a weekend with it, and he just like ran with it. And I think he flipped the whole time mechanic where time doesn't move when you move, and then kept adding boats. So then you have multiple boats, which is like kind of cool that you're controlling like several ships at once, and just kept adding stuff. And then it was just like, oh, cool. And I know you said earlier about like weird that like it's two people working together in an indie game because you have your own vision. And I think we each really do have our own vision. But ultimately, I think the core of our vision kind of aligns, where it's like we both want to make a good game that will help us pay our bills. So we're willing to like kind of make sacrifices and just kind of argue till we both get to the best solution, and like chip away at each other's ideas till they're like similar, or like they work together.
It's a fairly complimentary relationship, but do you ever step on each other's egos and put some hurt feelings here? And
yeah, I invite anybody to come to Gumbo for a day when John and I are there, and you will absolutely see what that's about. Yeah, John, like
I've never seen you guys disagree. I mean, maybe I just
Really?
ignored or something.
You must have very good,
my earbuds are in usually when I'm there. So
that's probably what it is, because Jonah sits right across from us, and he is part of all of our arguments. But it's nice. Like John and I have this kind of yin and yang sort of relationship when it comes to how we approach our ideas. We kind of go at it with two sort of different perspectives. And Blair, to your point, yeah, we butt heads like at least 3 or 4 times a day. There's something, and it's usually not even about games. It's about everything. It's about our coffee decisions. It's about whatever it is. We will absolutely find a way to disagree with each other if we can. But with like game development, it's kind of worked in our favor, because it's sort of like I don't know if you guys have seen that like Twitch plays Pokemon, right? You see this sort of weird cohesion and chaos. Like you get all these people putting in whatever inputs they want onto Twitch, but somehow they end up beating a game like Pokemon. And it's just, I think there's some of that. We have these things kind of steering in, or ideas that seemingly steer in these different directions. But the core of it, the thing that we're trying to get to is like John said, we just want to sell our souls for money. Is we just want to be able to survive. And that's kind of where it comes down to, is like, does the game suck to play, right? We can kind of settle the disputes by playing the freaking thing and seeing how it is. And we've definitely stepped on each other's egos, but we've gotten pretty good with just like taking each other's shit, just being able to kind of roll with it. And I think it's kind of made both of us better for it. It's made me better for it, at least. I don't know. John's he's his own person, but I'll speak on his behalf. It's fine.
It's not new.
Yeah, but it's worked. Yeah, I feel like even when it came to the design of the game, right? Like when every pivot that we made, there, I don't know, like 11 or 12 changes, massive changes that we made to the vision of the game. And everyone was sort of like, shit, we're shifting this thing again. And it's sort of like, not only is it difficult to kind of come to terms with, because it was like, oh, this was kind of our baby for a hot second. And now we got to move on to something else. But it's also just like, well, when are we going to get to a thing that is, releasable, right? It's just that like, are we ever going to actually meet our end deadline of like finishing this game in a year and a half and like getting it out to people? So there's always that kind of like existential dread anytime you do this sort of disagreement, because that's kind of looming in the background every time you have something like that.
Do you sort of have a point where you sort of like, all right, scope is hammered down, we are not changing anything more, we're just going to build this game now, and we're just going to, it may not be 100% perfect, but nothing ever is, and you just go with it? Or are you guys still kind of working to get there?
I think we're there. Yeah. I mean, we kind of knew with the original prototypes where if it didn't hold up to scrutiny, if like we could kind of look at it in the long run, like with the first game that right after Knock Loose, we had worked on kind of this sort of bigger prototype for a little bit. And one of the main problems with that prototype was we were basically trying to build a Breath of the Wild style game, but in the water. And there was no way that
very
that was
huge.
Yeah. Like we're not Nintendo, we're not going to kid ourselves. Like it's not, there's a lot that's going to be involved with some of these kinds of things. And even if, the mechanics and the design and everything kind of makes sense, if it doesn't fit the scope of the thing that we're trying to do, we're kind of okay with after some time like shutting it down. And that was kind of the problem with a lot of our prototypes. It's just, the scope is too big. So I think with this one, it just feels, once we scoped out how long it would take to get a lot of the stuff done.
You don't want to spend 7 years on a JRPG and just like be like, fuck it, and just.
That's a low number there.
Yeah, we got time. Blair. It's existential crises happen often enough. We'll probably get there.
So, if money were no object and you had all the resources in the world, what kind of game would you guys make? Or it doesn't have to be the same game. You don't have to do this together if you don't want to.
Final Fantasy 14 remake.
Okay.
No, I would make. John, you can take this one.
I was going to say, if resources and money is no option, I would probably fund another studio that I liked and then just retire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. I want to be
retire and then do what?
Just invest in other small indies. I think
play
more
other
interesting
people's video games.
Yeah, just see other people make cool stuff and then be like, oh yeah, I put money into that.
Just have your name on it. Just have your name at the top of it.
Yeah, just be a publisher. That's it.
That'd be amazing. Oh my god, that's a dream. If I never have to code again, my god, it'd be too soon. It'd be. I like coding and all, man. I think I would really like to make a. I've been telling John about this for a while, but I want to make a kind of narrative focused game, but I've never made a narrative, like a real narrative, for anything aside from like little short stories that I've written. So I would love to make something that has a narrative element that can take, like, I don't know. I like putting humor in the stuff that I write, and I would love to do like an anime parody game. I would just love to go in on going hard on that. I'm a super weeb. John's also a big weeb. He just doesn't admit it. So I would love to do something along those lines.
Sounds great. So yeah, for me, I would I don't think I could ever stop making games, regardless of any sort of level of success at it. If it ever happens, I think I will do this for as long as I possibly can until I die.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so long as you do that, Blair, I will be making music for your games.
Hey,
that's good to
nice.
hear.
Almost for free.
Almost for free. You got the right price, Gary.
There you go.
All right, guys. So you are really working together. Not even, yeah, not even really a couple of years into this yet, are you?
Well, 1 year next week.
One year only. I thought it
Yeah.
was
1 year, yeah.
because I thought you
Yeah.
started just before the pandemic. On
Well, not working together.
Okay.
Like, I mean, we worked on a jam, but
Yeah.
that was it. It was Labor Day weekend was like our official start because it was like a 3-day weekend.
Got it.
So it was like we have time.
So, with that said, though, what kind of like you I'm sure you've learned a lot in that year. What kind of advice would you give to if you could rewind time a year and go back and talk to yourselves, or give advice to a younger version of yourself, or just someone else in the community who's getting started out?
Oh God, this is so
Put
much.
in the spot.
Keep your day job. Keep making money.
I think my younger self, like 2009, invest in Bitcoin.
That's the one.
That's what
Yeah.
I would do, and then I could go and be a publisher and not make games, because I'd have unlimited funds. Yeah, I think just start. I guess just make something. I mean, I still have people come up. We had students come up to us during Play NYC asking us for
Yeah.
advice, and I mean, I've obviously given a lot of advice to students over the years because I was teaching, and it's really just like just make something that you think is interesting. Because I see so many people like making games. Like one of the first game jobs I had, someone was making doing a bunch of match 3 games based off of like public, what's it called? Like public domain stories. So like they're like, oh, this is Mother Goose match 3. It's like, who cares? Like
Honest.
no one, right? Like who cares? Like that's not something, and no one's really passionate about Mother Goose, and maybe people are passionate about match 3s, but like, so make something that you like, because like we all said and come to terms with is, I mean, there's a way to make money in this industry, but a lot of times it's a crapshoot. And a lot of times it is passion focused. So if you're going to be giving it your all, it might as well be over something you care about.
So, what brought you into this thing? Because it sounds like you're very well aware of the challenge. There's nothing else you could possibly ever dream of doing.
What, me or
You.
me?
You.
Yeah, I guess it's like, it's the perfect intersection of like art and technology, which are like two things that I really love. Like on the team, I do both art and some coding. So I'm able to like kind of do both, which I can't really do anywhere else. And like just interaction design's really cool. I just think it's like a great space to be in. And like, I don't know, I was definitely more on the side of believing that, I think starting out, you definitely just do what you love and you learn stuff, and you get a portfolio of work that you can use in the future, and you get like you start making a style, and you start just understanding how these things work. But since working with Vinny, he's much more data oriented and has a much better business mindset. And working with Jose, he had a great business mindset, but he was just like, I'm going to talk to everyone. I'm going to, he was very different. Vinny like looks at this data and is like, hey, if we do these, these are the ways we can make money. It's possible, whatever. Like, we're not building passion projects. We're building a company, which, I think it's great to build passion projects. But like, at the end of the day, we got bills to pay, and we want to build a company. We want to split that difference between, working a job and just doing what you love all day. And I think we've kind of found with all things, we've kind of found a balance. And with this, I mean, hopefully we'll find a balance. I think we're on a good path though.
All right. Vinit, how about you? What advice
I
would
don't know if I
you
can
give?
follow that. That was very passionate.
Yeah, that-
I
that
don't know if I've
was-
seen you that passionate before. Maybe the only thing I would add to that is John makes me come off like a data money robot, but I would really say that for me the biggest thing, I think there are so many different types of people, but for me, I need a reason to get off my ass and do a thing. Like I need some real motivation. And when I wrote down when I was, it was like 29 at the time, and I had this like big existential dread of like, I'm not doing anything that I actually want with my life. I just made it my goal that I was going to start a game studio by the time I was 30. And I was going to do everything I could to get there. And I think it's just important that, there's that saying that, a work isn't a piece of art until you've got a deadline. I think that's true for basically everything. I just give yourself a deadline and then do the thing. If sure, keep your day job or quit your day job, whatever it is that you want to do. But unless you hold yourself accountable, unless you tell yourself that you're going to do it, it's always going to be a thing you'll probably get to at some point. You'll maybe get to once XYZ happens. And I think if you give yourself a deadline, you're taking yourself seriously, and you're taking like the rest of your life and the things that you want out of your life seriously. And I think really that's what games are to me. I've always, used games as like a good comparison for everything else that I do in the rest of my life. And I think it's important to make sure that you're, you got to make money, you got to do the things you got to do to survive, but also like do things that are good for you, like good for the things that keep you going. And for me and also for John, it's just like games keep us going. We got to make money. We definitely got to make money. But we're going to try to do that in this crazy ass industry.
So I think, not to disparage our previous guests, but these answers to this question, because I asked this to all our guests, was probably the best we've ever gotten. It was very motivational and inspirational. At least I found it to be so. What did you think, Gary?
Well, it's one of those answers where I don't feel depressed after hearing it.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it's very inspirational, and it's like this may sound kind of tacky, but like a very American dream kind of thing.
Yeah, now we just got to get that money.
Pursuit of happiness, money comes later, or so they
That's
say.
right.
I do have to ask, the namesake of your company, Cheap Ramen Games. How did you come up with that?
John, you can take this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So like when I was, can we curse on this podcast?
Oh,
Is that
yeah.
thing?
Well, we're
Okay,
not
great.
Go ahead.
So
Yeah.
so when we were when I first follow the paperwork for the company, my whole thing was just like a fuck you to every single person who I've worked with previously, whether I like them or not, because it was like, okay, you guys did things wrong. I saw what you did wrong. I'm gonna do them right. So fuck my way. And so the company, and it still legally is called Tarrasque Digital. Like a Tarrasque is a monster in Dungeons and Dragons, and it was like this very like brutal like grindcore metal font that was like almost unreadable. Like I don't know if you know those.
It
very
was unreadable.
Scratchy. Yeah, it was great. And the whole thing was,
Terrible.
I loved it. And the thing is, I got a lot of feedback on it, and people were either like, "This is stupid," or like, "Oh, I love this," which I thought was great because that was the whole point. Because I worked with so many studios in the past, or like just people doing one-off projects, and we would do everything by the book that you were like told to do, or like a blog post said to do, and it would lead nowhere. And then I worked with Normal, and it was just kind of like everything, they didn't do stuff by the books, and it would work out, and a lot of it would work out because they had money, and they also had very talented people, but they were able to hire talented people with money, and it was just like, oh, this is messed up that like you could do things by the book and it doesn't work out. So I was like, fuck you, it's Trask, it's brutal. Vinit comes on and he's just like, I hate this. This is terrible. This is unreadable. I don't want to do anything like this. So his whole thing was just like, we need an adjective and a noun and then games. Let's just do that normal thing that every studio does. So we sat down and probably a good like 2 hours over dinner, made a list of all these adjectives and all these nouns, and was just like, what can we do? And Vinit and I are both vegan, so I think one of them we were gonna do was like soy boy games.
Hell yeah.
And
That's,
we scratched that one.
Look, there's still time to.
Yeah, I guess we could change. So
I
we
vote
scratched
for
that.
one.
It was great, right? So, but then we were just like, I don't know if everyone will get it. So we kept working with it, and the only rule we had was like the adjective had to be positive. So when we put cheap down, we're like, oh, is cheap a positive thing? And it's debatable, right? Like cheap, like sometimes if things are cheap, that's great, and sometimes they're terrible. And so we're like, you know what? If ramen is cheap, that's great. I love cheap ramen. Let's go with that. And it kind of has this like interesting like part to it. Like I don't know if you guys experienced this, but when I first moved out on my own and was working when I was working in LA and like teaching games during the day, I'd also then make games at night, and I didn't have money. I ate ramen like 3 nights a week. Just instant packs of ramen, and it was awful. But I did it, and I think a lot of other devs did it, and I think it has this like nostalgia to it.
I think everybody does it.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
great. So
I still do it.
Yeah.
That was,
I
that
got
was
lucky. I married someone who cooks, so that helps.
Nice. That is
Yeah.
lucky.
that's helpful. Yeah,
Yeah.
we should have been Soylent Games.
Soylent,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I think there
Yeah.
might actually already be a Soylent Games.
Oh.
Really?
I think there is. I feel like
Yeah,
we need to
that's
Google that one
that's where
later.
the games make people.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you guys so much for your time. This was a lot of fun.
No, thank you guys. Yeah, this was
Yeah.
last. This is great.